Thank you for joining us in this teaching of the book of 1 Thessalonians. Today we're going to be in 1 Thessalonians, the second chapter, verse number 10. So turn your Bibles with us and read along with me now as we look again at 1 Thessalonians, the second chapter, verse number 10, and it says, "You are witnesses, and so is God, how devotedly and uprightly and blamelessly we behaved towards you believers." Now, the Apostle Paul has just said a mouthful. First of all, he said, you are witnesses. You know what? There's people watching you today. There's people watching you all the time. If you're in leadership in a church, you know what? People are watching you. They're witnessing. They're looking at you, and they're looking at the way that you live. You know, I've ministered to thousands of pastors worldwide. And you know what? One of the things that I tell them, you know what? The best sermon you will ever bring to your people is the way you live your life on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's how you live your life. And so Paul starts out in verse number 10, and he says, you're witnesses. You saw it. You watched us. You watched how we lived among you. But then he said, and not only did you watch us, but somebody else was watching us. It was God. God was watching how we were living. You know, one of the greatest revelations that a believer can have is that God's watching you. Not out of fear. Oh, he's going to get you. You better be careful. No, I'm not talking about that. But God is watching how you perform. And he's not watching how your numbers are. And he's not watching on how prosperous you are or how many people that you've witnessed to. He is watching how you live. Now, the Apostle Paul mentions three different categories and three different things in this verse. The first thing that he says is how devotedly. How devotedly. Now, what does that mean? Well, the word devotedly means piously, or it means a holy way of living. You know what? People are witnessing, and God is witnessing your holiness. What about your holiness? Are you living a holy life? Now, I'm not talking about some kind of piety that you show when you're in the office at the church, or when you're teaching your Sunday school class, or when you're in your fellowship group. I'm not talking about that kind of piety. I'm talking about a holiness that when in everything that you do, you know, I've said this before on these podcasts, and I'll say it again. If I went into your neighborhood and asked, is so-and-so a Christian? What would they say? That's the type of holiness that I'm talking about. You know, are you hiding the alcohol bottles in your trash because you don't want anybody else to know? Are you watching things on TV that if somebody came over to the door and knocked on the door, you'd have to quick turn the channel? Where is your holiness? That's what Paul is saying. Paul is saying, hey, you Thessalonians, you witnessed it and God witnessed it, that when we lived among you, that we lived a holy life. Brothers and sisters, we as believers need to get back to stressing and believing and making it a purpose in our lives to live in holiness. I'm not talking about religious holiness. I'm talking about real holiness in your heart first, and then let it be seen in your actions. The next word that the Apostle Paul says here, he says uprightly. Uprightly. What does he mean by uprightly? He's talking about living with integrity. In other words, do you live with integrity? In other words, if you promise something, do you keep it? In other words, if someone says, well, come at such and such a time, are you there at that time? Are you using the money that God has given you with integrity? Are you building something with integrity? You see, integrity is really, it's an architectural term, and it means a strength of character, or in this reference, a strength of character. It means the strength of a building architecturally. What about it? Are you living with integrity? You see, the Apostle Paul said, you saw it. You saw it in our lives. When we came to you, you saw the integrity that we operated with. You saw that we didn't come just to use you. We didn't just come just to put the marks in the gospel gun, the way we used to say. You know, some people, they just go around and they like to preach at somebody, and then if they pray the sinner's prayer with that person, they put a mark in their gospel gun. You know what? That's not integrity. Integrity is doing the right things with the right reason, with the right attitude. So the Apostle Paul says to these Thessalonians, he said, you witnessed it and God witnessed it, that we came to you, first of all, we came to you devoutly. Second of all, we came to you with integrity. And then the next word that he uses is a very amazing word. He says, and blamelessly we behave towards you as believers. Blameless. Wow, what a big word. What does it mean? It means that there's no place to hang an accusation. You know, sometimes people get all upset when someone accuses them of something. And you know what? It's not nice to get accused. I've been accused many times. But you know what? When in your heart, you know there's no place to hang that accusation, you know what? You're free. And the Apostle Paul said, you know what? We came to you. And you know what? By the way, the Apostle Paul got accused of a bunch of stuff by the unbelievers. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, I believe. He got accused of a lot of stuff, but you know what? In the Apostle Paul's heart and in his actions, the people knew that there was no place, there was no reality in that accusation. You know what? We as believers need to set in our hearts that we're going to live with holiness, that we're going to live uprightly with integrity, and that we're going to live with this in mind, that there will be no reason that someone can hang an accusation on us. I hope this has helped you today. God bless you until we speak to you again tomorrow.